Imagine for a second that you are living in the year 1715. You are a peasant in France. Life is hard. You work all day in the mud just to earn a few small silver coins. To you, money is something you can touch. It's heavy, it's cold, and it's rare. If you have a coin, you have wealth. If you don't, you starve. There is no such thing as a credit card. There are no banks for regular people. There is only the metal in your pocket. But then, the King of France dies. He leaves behind a country that is completely bankrupt. France owes so much gold to other countries that, even if they sold every house and every horse in the kingdom, they still couldn't pay it back. The country is like a car that has run out of gas, and everyone is just sitting on the side of the road waiting for a miracle. Enter a man named John Law. He isn't a priest. He isn't a prince. He is a convicted murderer who escaped from a London prison and spent the last 10 years traveling across Europe, winning millions of dollars by counting cards in smoky gambling dens. He is the world's greatest gambler, and he has a plan to save France by performing the greatest magic trick in the history of the world. But here is the first twist. John Law didn't want to find more gold. He wanted to convince the world that gold was useless. He wanted to replace real money with make-believe money. To understand how John Law tricked an entire nation, we have to look at the Pokémon Card Analogy. Imagine you are on a school playground. Everyone loves shiny Pokémon cards. For a long time, the only way to get a card was to find a rare one in a pack. They were hard to find, so they were very valuable. But then, one kid, let's call him John, shows up with a stack of plain white index cards. He tells everyone, hey, don't worry about the shiny cards anymore. I'll write Pikachu on this piece of paper, and I'll sign my name on the back. I promise you that this paper is worth exactly the same as a real shiny card. You can trade it for snacks, you can trade it for toys, and if you ever want a real card, just bring the paper back to me, and I'll give you one. At first, everyone laughs. It's just paper, they say. But then, the principal of the school, the king, tells everyone they must use John's paper to buy their lunch. Suddenly, the paper isn't just paper anymore. It has power. It has value because everyone agrees it does. This is exactly what John Law did. He convinced the French government to let him open a bank that printed paper bills. He told the people, stop carrying heavy gold. It's dangerous. It's slow. Use my paper instead. And because the king backed him up, the people of France did something they had never done before. They handed over their real gold and silver in exchange for John's colorful pieces of paper. For the first time in history, a major country was running on trust instead of metal. And for a while, it worked perfectly. The gas was back in the car. People were buying houses, opening shops, and feeling rich. But this leads us to the second twist. John Law didn't just want to be a banker. He wanted to own the entire world. Law realized that if he could print money, he could also print dreams. He started a new company called the Mississippi Company. He told the people of France that he owned a magical land across the ocean called Louisiana. He told them the ground was made of gold, the rivers were full of emeralds, and the mountains were made of silver. He told them, if you give me your paper money, I'll give you a share of this magical land. When we bring the gold back, you'll be richer than the king. The problem? Louisiana was a swamp. There was no gold. There were no emeralds. It was mostly mosquitoes and mud. John Law was selling invisible gold to people who were already using make-believe money. But the people of France went crazy. Everyone from the richest dukes to the poorest chimney sweeps sold everything they owned to buy shares in the Mississippi Company. The price of a share went from 500 livres to 10,000 livres in just a few months. This was the world's first true stock market bubble. People were getting rich overnight without doing any work. They were millionaires, a word that was actually invented during this time to describe the people who followed John Law. But as the price of the shares went higher and higher, people started to get a weird feeling in their stomachs. This brings us to the third twist. The magic trick only works if no one looks behind the curtain. One day, a very wealthy prince decided he wanted to see if his wealth was real. He showed up at John Law's bank with a giant stack of paper bills and said, "I'm done with the paper. Give me my gold back." All of it. To keep the secret, Law had to give him the gold. But 3 giant wagons full of gold leaving the bank made everyone else on the street stop and look. They realized that if the prince was taking his gold out, maybe there wouldn't be any left for them. Suddenly, the trust began to evaporate. The Pokémon cards were turning back into index cards. A line started to form outside the bank. At first, it was 10 people, then 100, then thousands. Everyone wanted their gold back at the exact same time. But remember, John Law had printed way more paper than he had gold. He had been renting out 5 bicycles when he only owned 1. Law tried everything to stop the panic. He made it illegal to own more than a small amount of gold. He sent police to search people's houses. He even hired a group of beggars, gave them shovels, and marched them through the streets of Paris, telling everyone they were miners going to Louisiana to get the gold. But the beggars just sold their shovels and went home. The lie was dead. This leads us to the 4th twist. When the system collapsed, it didn't just hurt the rich. It destroyed the entire concept of the future for France. Overnight, the paper money became worthless. People used it to light fires. They used it as wallpaper. The shares of the Mississippi Company, which were worth 10,000 livres, were now worth 0. The millionaires were now beggars. The riots were so bad that John Law had to flee the country in the middle of the night, disguised as a woman. He died a few years later, broke and alone, still trying to win his fortune back in gambling houses. But the damage to France was permanent. The French people were so traumatized by make-believe money that they refused to trust banks for the next 100 years. While England was building modern banks and growing rich, France stayed stuck in the past, hiding their gold under floorboards. This lack of money is what eventually led to the French Revolution. The king couldn't pay his debts, the people couldn't buy bread, and the only solution left was the guillotine. So, what is the lesson of John Law? For 300 years, we have been told that John Law was a villain, and in many ways, he was. He was a liar and a scammer. But here is the final and most important twist of all. John Law was right. Look at the money in your wallet right now. It isn't gold. It isn't silver. It's a piece of paper with a signature on it. Look at the balance in your bank account. It's just digital dots on a screen. John Law was the first person to realize that the global economy doesn't run on metal. It runs on belief. He realized that if you can get everyone to agree that something has value, you can create wealth out of thin air. We are all currently living in John Law's world. Every time the Federal Reserve prints money, every time the stock market goes up because of hype, and every time you use a credit card, you are using the tools that a gambler invented in a French prison 300 years ago. John Law's system allowed the modern world to be built. It gave us the power to build cities, fight wars, and explore space. But it also gave us the power to destroy ourselves. The magic money machine is still humming. We are still trading index cards for shiny cards. And we are all still crossing our fingers, hoping that no one ever shows up with enough wagons to take all the gold away. The next time you see a dollar bill, don't see it as a piece of paper. See it as a pinky promise. And remember that in a world of make-believe, the most dangerous person in the room is the one who knows that the money isn't real. But the consequences are. The cards are dealt. The bets are in. And the ghost of John Law is still sitting at the table watching us play.